Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau.
The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by MediaClip, Photo Finale, and Advertech Printing. Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by Scott Robinson, the Director of Strategic Future Products at Kodak Moments. And we're going to be talking about photo kiosks. Hi, Scott. How are you today?
I'm great, Gary, and thanks a lot for your interest in Kodak Moments and for having a conversation with me today.
No problem. So first, for our audience, can you talk a little bit about where Kodak Moments fits into the array of Kodak businesses, I guess is the way to phrase that.
Yeah, I think there is some confusion sometimes about that, Gary. So, Kodak Alaris was really born out of some Eastman Kodak company businesses back in 2013 as a part of their exit from Chapter 11. And so Kodak Alaris lives on as a separate company, privately held out of the UK. And Kodak Alaris is made up of a couple of different business units. Predominantly, it's Alaris business, which is very much a B2B business with scanners and software and services for businesses. And then there's Kodak Moments, which is much more of a digital photo, consumer photo business, which, we work with B2B customers as well as directly to the consumer.
You have an array of products and services in the Kodak Moments portfolio, including apps and also kiosks. And I want to talk to you right now about the new Kodak Moments To Go kiosks. Can you tell us a little bit about the new touchless innovation in that kiosk?
Sure, Gary. Let me start by telling you a little bit about Kodak Moments To Go. We started off on this as a kind of a product where we felt a need in the marketplace. First of all, because there were traditional, retailer outlets that had photo and had photo labs, mini labs, et cetera, have been the traditional outlets for photo. But there's a need in the industry to bring experiences to other retailers. And there's a lot of retailers out there that offer very convenient locations for consumers, but they don't want the complexity of managing a photo department. So ultimately, we started to look at, could we create a small footprint, easy to use, easy to maintain product, which we could drop into retail locations and would allow them to offer up a photo service to their consumers that visit their location. That kind of started off and morphed into really a completely self-service station, which is basically owned, operated all by Kodak Moments. So it's hands off by the retailer. They can just have to provide a power source in a small footprint, and we drop that in there, and now their customers have access to photos whenever they visit. And those photos can be ordered from out of store as well as directly in store using either their phone or the touch screen that's on the device.
Does the retailer have to provide internet too, or is that something that you've built into the machine?
We've built that into the machine. It turns out that when you get into this class of retail called automated retail, they kind of have an expectation that you don't have to go off of their internet or their backbone, their corporate backbone. So we can build cellular services in today with good bandwidth and make our connection via cell.
That's kind of interesting because I know one of the concerns that retailers have who offer wireless in their locations is, security.
Yeah, that is absolutely a great point, Gary, because, one of the difficult conversations when we first started this way was, if you want to ask them for internet, you have a lengthy discussion with an IT department. Which can really stall out the idea of bringing this to market. So by offering this with a cellular service, a cellular connection, assuming they have a location, obviously, that has adequate bandwidth to provide such a good customer experience at such a location, then we can manage that all by ourselves.
So right now you're offering this as like a managed service, and you've got locations according to your announcements, in Arizona, Kentucky, and New York. How have they been working in the marketplace?
Well, a lot of them are very new, so they're very much, driving awareness and trial of those, but they're absolutely working great. Gary, well, first of all, we take customer satisfaction very important, and we always listen to feedback and try to react to that. And we measure our devices by a net promoter score, if you're familiar with that.
Mhm.
And our net promoter scores are very good. So I feel like we really have a service that consumers love once they try it. Obviously, we're putting this into locations that aren't traditional locations. So we have to, first of all, we drive some awareness of the product and then, get them to trial it. But again, we have excellent results when they do trial it, good feedback from the consumers that do.
So what are some of the services offered through the kiosk? Are you offering, on-site printing, access to a portal for pickup and gifting later? Are the gifts delivered to the store or to the home?
So we've actually experimented with a few different things here, but right now our primary offering is in store. We can deliver kind of standard print sizes. So
Mhm.
obviously 4x6, 5x7, 6x8, 5x5, 6x6, kind of different print formats.
Sure.
For other products that consumers might be interested in, we link them actually to our direct to consumer ship to home business. So we can take them to an internet site, basically, which is just, our kodakmoments.com, a mirror of our kodakmoments.com site, where they can order other products that they might be interested in. As we know, it's a growing segment in the industry, and they can get those then shipped directly to their home.
The retailer participates in that revenue share, correct? Even if it's ordered online and shipped home as long as it's placed through the kiosk?
Yeah, if it's ordered through the kiosk or ordered from the store, even via their mobile phone, because we offer, again, we're going to get to this touch-free service that we offer through your mobile device. We can track all that, and we can give credit back to the retailer for that.
And so let's talk about contactless. Obviously, in the age of COVID, people interacting with services in a retail environment, surfaces, I should say, in a retail environment is a concern. How has the new Kodak Moments kiosk addressed that? How does it actually work?
It starts off with, by the way, that we kind of first recognized this in the first wave of COVID as it hit the United States, and most of us went into a shelter in place type of lockdown, and we started to think to ourselves, there are a number of concerns that consumers have now going into stores. So we pivoted an agile team toward what could we do to take some of the things that we have and bring to bear a completely contactless consumer journey. And it turned out that, in the development actually of our Kodak Moments To Go self-service print station that we just talked about, we had developed the ability to do, well, we kind of took a mobile first approach, I guess is what I would say. And it wasn't mobile only, but it was mobile first. And that, a lot of transaction could happen on the mobile phone, but not all of it. So what we did was look at the parts of the customer journey that didn't include the ability to kind of not touch anything. And we said, okay, how can we change that? And we're very much, I guess, believers in, design thinking principles. So we kind of empathized and we ideated around that, and we trialed some things, and we do a lot of consumer testing, both online and in our lab that we have at our development, facility in Rochester, New York. And we trialed several different things, but ultimately we've been able to provide a journey where the consumer can scan a QR code with their phone or put in a URL in their browser on their phone. They can select the products that they want to build. They can build those out, create their order. Then they can release that order they can pay for it all on their phone and then release that by all from their phone without having to touch the unit. The only thing they end up doing at the end is obviously they grab their prints out of the print bin, but those are prints that have come out fresh. They're not been touched by anyone else, and they pick those up and can go. So we believe that the Kodak Moments to Go solution has very much solved the problem of you don't have to touch a surface.
Is this a technology that you're going to be able to retrofit to existing kiosks?
Yes, Gary, we can do that. We've developed it in a way that we can also offer this to our retail partners that have our traditional kiosks. And, obviously, each of our retailers has their own operation. And obviously, we take that into account when we design anything. We know that there's a lot of unique specifics to each retailer and how they want to configure things and how their in-store operations work. But we've built a system with this that we can adapt to different configurations and different styles of how they release product once to a consumer in the store. The one thing we don't solve in that case is the payment piece. But we basically similarly, you can scan from your phone a QR code or input a URL. You can connect to the service all on your phone. It's essentially serving up a mobile web page, and all of the creation takes place there and the release of the order takes place there. You then have to get the clerk to either give you your prints or you collect them yourself, depending on the configuration of the store. And then but almost all stores offer contactless payment now. So essentially, again, the consumer journey is pretty much contact free.
Can you give us some examples of the type of retailers who are looking at adding the Kodak Moments to Go type format kiosk? And the reason why I ask that is because we've seen in recent announcements, some retailers even exiting the physical photo category, right? They're pulling out their equipment and they're going online only. And it seems to me like it's a business decision, right? If they're putting in if they have a big mini lab with some big floor space and it's not generating the money, it should come out. So clearly a kiosk or something smaller may make more sense on a per square foot basis. But it seems to me like it's a very much an individual retailer type decision. Some retailers still have very large photo departments comparatively. Others have downsized significantly. But you said this was to look at new channels, correct?
Yeah, new channels, or you could even argue old channels. I think we all probably remember, certainly grocery stores used to have at one time mini labs, and they all took them out because they required labor, large floor space. There were at the time there were chemicals to deal with, et cetera, before the dry labs came about. And I think what they don't want to do is get back into that business. No one's looking to get back into a very high labor cost type of business. And that's one of the things, obviously, that the Kodak Moments to Go solution solves is they're actually zero labor. You really don't have to have any involvement. We replenish it. We do all the marketing. We do all the maintenance. And so there really isn't a labor content, and it's a very small square footage. So there's not a large, place that it takes up. It typically goes in the front of the stores with other automated retail, such as red boxes and Coinstars, where there really isn't selling. They don't really consider that necessarily selling space anyway within the store. So that's kind of one of the places that it kind of fits well with. And again, those are the same kind of classes is, how can you offer a value added service to your consumer base, but you don't have to add a lot of labor or floor space or complexity in operations.
So I think this is a great idea, just from the standpoint that it reminds people that, wow, I better print these darn pictures on my phone, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think we all remember the day when, at least many of us remember the day. I won't say all, because certainly there's a class of consumers coming up that don't recall film at all. But certainly we remember the day at the grocery checkout, at least I do, when it was stocked with film, right? And, photo was in front of you everywhere, and it certainly isn't today. And so this is one thing that it does do, is it gets photo back in front of a lot of foot traffic.
Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in the photo kiosk market overall. It's one of those things where you talk to industry people and it's like, oh, kiosks are dead. They're, no one's putting in kiosks. Then you talk to some of the vendors and they're like, no, I'm actually, kiosks are actually doing pretty well in the retailers who are supporting them. And
Yes, I think first of all, they'll have a role for a very, very long time.
right.
I do think that there is some change in consumer behavior here.
Hmm.
Certainly, even the pandemic has, I'll call, hastened some of that change.
Sure.
In that more people are ordering online for pickup in store. But again, if you start to think about self-service, even in that scenario, I think you could look at a number of mass retailers where they'll have online pickup in store, but you go to a kiosk once you get to the store to kind of claim your order.
Right.
So I think, in general, kiosks have a role for a very long time.
Mhm.
Also, we have found, even though we've offered mobile first and click and collect, that there's certainly a lot of consumers who very much want that experience at a kiosk still.
Yeah.
Um, I could tell you that while we offer a mobile first experience on our Kodak Moments to Go, we still have a half to two-thirds of people that would still prefer to use the touchscreen.
Hmm.
So that's still going to be a preference, I think, for quite a long time. There's certain behaviors that it just don't change quickly.
Right.
So I view it as a place where, while the role of it might change over time, I think it has a very long future.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people tend to look at photo or even just consumer electronics and other um, categories as zero sum game, right? Well, people can look at the pictures on their phone, so they don't need to print anymore. Well, that's not the case. People like physical prints. They may print differently. They may print on different surfaces, and they may do different things. But for the most part, it's not a zero sum game. And like you said, we have to create as an industry a way to increase access to photo because some of the access points have gone away.
I agree with you, Gary, there. I think that's one of the things we, as an industry, we have to be concerned about is to make sure it stays present in the minds of consumers. And I'm not just talking about, the people that we I guess a lot of times we think about, well, of course there's a generation that printed. I can assure you that, I'll use a personal example here. I have a 17-year-old daughter who absolutely loves to have prints, and I know others that are just like her
Sure,
as
exactly.
well. And she decorates her room with them, and she changes them out frequently.
Hmm.
And so we have a number of cases like that. This is not a, this there's a future here in printing. The product, that the exact physical format that they like, as you say, may change, and the way they use the photos may change some.
Right.
But I think people still very much resonate with the physical printed product. It's a different experience than what you get off of a screen.
You mentioned the pandemic earlier. That's really changed consumer behavior. I think as we go forward, some of the behavior that consumers have adopted in because of COVID, like maybe reducing the amount of store visits, being wary of touching surfaces, are going to continue even after the pandemic is eradicated, hopefully sometime in the year 2021. Is this something that you're anticipating continuing as well?
I do, Gary. I think that, we're going to see a change in behavior, which is permanent here. I mean, I've read several McKinsey reports. I'm kind of a fan of theirs in some of the research that they do, and some of these behaviors have really leapfrogged. What they would say is, e-commerce, for example, probably
Mhm.
gained 8 years of adoption in the
Right.
matter of a couple of months.
Yeah, and,
And
and
so,
unfortunately, the postal service didn't leap in an
yeah.
equal amount of efficiency, right?
Yes, unfortunately, I know people that might still be waiting for Christmas gifts. Um, but yes, I think that you're going to see some permanent change here. There's going to be more. I believe there'll be more buy online, pick up at the store for photo
Hmm.
products. We certainly see a surge in that,
Hmm.
and I think that's going to continue. I think, but retail is still a very popular destination for getting that product, basically within the hour.
Right.
And I think it would be interesting if some of the retailers included that in their, 1 hour delivery to home as a
Right.
service, which I think, is possible that they'll start to consider that.
You mentioned Kodak Moments has a ship to home service. Can you talk a little bit about the Kodak Moments portfolio, if you will? So, because I don't think everyone knows everything that Kodak Moments is specifically responsible for.
Oh, I'd be happy to kind of elaborate on that, Gary. First of all, I think if you looked at kind of what our core business has been since its inception, has been the idea of providing a kiosk for retailers at retail locations.
Mhm.
And we still, we offer a number of different, products there and services for retailers. And that is a big part of the business at Kodak Moments. We have the Apex Dry Labs, which, are a little higher volume, and they're kind of, I'll call it behind the counter services that a lot of these buy online, pick up in stores, or click and collect orders flow through to the network orders.
Mhm.
And certainly we offer that service as well, that we connect our retailers and websites to those units. That's a service we provide. And so things like, for example, Google Prints. Google Prints sends to one of our retail partners, and we manage all those orders down to that retail partner so that those can be fulfilled. Um, so those Apex labs are very important, but obviously there's the consumer facing kiosk as well. We have a higher end model in the G20, and we also have a kind of a more entry level product called the M1. Those are products that basically have the consumer facing software for creating all kinds of different products, and we basically work to introduce several new products every year that
Mhm.
consumers can do at retail, and including some pretty elaborate things that you might have used to only been able to get at by ordering them to home with several
Are
weeks to delivery.
are those other kiosks available in the service model, or are they more of a traditional kiosk?
No, they're more of a traditional. I think if you're talking about a service model, let me clarify, in being that we own and operate them.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
no, this is more the traditional business model where you know uh, they basically have the asset, they own the asset, generally speaking, and we provide service
Sure.
is available to them, for
Mhm.
example, but they really own it and operate it. We provide software updates to it, but it's really their operation. So it's their
Okay.
labor, it's their staff and floor space, obviously, that
Okay.
provides the service.
So really, the new Kodak Moments to Go is really the only offering you have that has the service model.
Yeah, the full service model where you don't touch anything, you don't have any inventory, you don't have any, you don't have any capital expense. The only thing you're providing us is a power source and a space.
Going forward, looking into 2021, how do you see the photo market, the photo printing market evolving and possibly growing? Because, like you said, we've been hearing reports of people having pretty impressive gains from an e-commerce standpoint.
Yeah, well, certainly, as we mentioned, our Kodak Moments.com's service, our, ship to home service saw an increase this year in e-commerce, just due to the fact that more people were looking for that kind of service as they avoided retail during the
Mhm.
pandemic. Um, but in general, I do see that there's certainly some people that are, doing uh, ship to home.
Mhm.
Equally, there's a good number of people that are using that kind of, I'll call it network ordering, to order at store because they still want that kind of same day delivery, and obviously we've got a number of very big names in the supply industry that are out there, increasingly teaching you that everything should come to you same day or within a couple of days.
Right.
So I think that the kind of expectation that this is somewhat instantaneous delivery still puts a big demand on retail as a big part of the photo experience. The products that can be produced at retail are very important to the industry. And I know that we keep increasing the number of things and the number of products that can be made right in a retail shop, assuming that that retailer is willing to put in a little bit of labor, you know.
Right.
So, everything from canvases to mugs to photo panels, all can be now produced in store, and you can get them within the hour.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. But like you said, that requires some investment personnel and training from on the retailer standpoint. So that's always a kind of a tug of war, if you will, and that's in that area because, like you said, some people want to go to the unattended model, just drop in the box, Kodak Moments to Go, or they want a full blown photo department.
It really depends on the strategy of that retailer and how important that photo service, I think, is to their consumer base.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably one of their decision points.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we have services to kind of work with all of those models. Kodak Moments to Go is, like I said, is the way we solve, I'll call it the endless aisle of photo products with that particular device, is that
Right.
we direct you to a ship to home model,
Right.
because they're not going to have the space and the staff to produce an
Right.
elaborate photo product in those stores. But other retail partners that we work with, photo is very strategic to them, and they have, they're okay with a labor model, and as long as you make it easy enough for their labor model, right? So operations is very key, and a big important part of what we do is really consider how will this work within a store operation with a staff that's not going to be necessarily even dedicated to photo. So
Right.
it has to be pretty simple. So we spend a lot of time on in that case, the customer experience is very much the clerk. What's their experience, and how do we make this easy for them to do?
Because their attitude can often make a department grow or sink depending on their experience they provide the customer, right? So if they look at photo as a chore or an obstruction to something else that they need to do, it can be a problem. So you've got to make it easy and seamless for not only the consumer, but for the in-store staff.
Yeah, and also, Gary, I would say that when we design something and we can get the staff excited about it, hey, this is a cool product and it's not hard to make, they also become advocates for the product, which
Exactly.
is a really key part of the
Right.
whole business.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Scott, for your time. I appreciate it, and looking forward to more excitement coming from Kodak Moments this year.
Great. Thanks a lot for your time, Gary. I appreciate your interest in what we're doing at Kodak Moments, and hopefully we'll all have a better 2021 here, and we'll hopefully see the end of the pandemic, and consumers get to relax a little bit more, and all of us get to have a little bit of our lives back.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.